What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and today we'll be continuing what I suppose you could call part 2 of my Rogues in Castle Nathria opinion series. Today we'll be looking into the old reliable of raiding, Assassination. So what do I think of how our poison and bleed expert is doing? Well, I guess you'll have to watch to find out. I previously covered Outlaw this week in regards to how it felt in Castle Nathria, so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link up top to that video. I also plan on leaving a pinned comment down below for any additional thoughts I might have had that didn't end up in the video due to hamster brain moments or any other forgetful type things. Again, the following are entirely my opinions of how the specs are feeling in Raid, not some form of DPS ranking chart system or anything like that, so please don't take it out of context. As I mentioned in my Outlaw video, Castle Nathria is a 10-boss raid, with a very consistent theme of movement mechanics. There are numerous mechanics that a group can coordinate and assign to players to do, such as retrieving anima orbs for Prince Renathal in the Stormborn Generals fight, moving Seeds of Extinction on the Artificer Zymo encounter, opening primal anima containers on the Lady Enerva Darkvein fight, and many more. However, there is an equal or greater number of mechanics that randomly select people that involve running out of the group. Echolocation in the Shriekwing encounter and Reverberating Leap in the Stoneborn Generals encounter are two examples of needing to move away from others, but there are plenty more where that came from in Castle Nathria. So what does this mean for Assassination rogues? Well, Assassination has been the optimal choice for basically all raiding in Battle for Azeroth as a rogue. It has very consistent and predictable damage windows, and a rotation that is overall pretty easy to understand, though I would definitely recommend some weak auras for tracking debuff timers and some pretty good nameplates to look at a glance, especially so you can keep up with your pandemic refreshes and empowered growths and all that assassination mumbo jumbo. Another very strong benefit of Assassination is the amount of damage over time effects it has that contribute to its overall damage. Rupture and Garrote make up an impressive amount of overall damage, and the dot effect of Deadly Poison is still a pretty respectable amount as well. Though with Slice and Dice now being part of our toolkit, you get a pretty large amount of instant damage from reapplying Deadly Poison to the same target. Once again, Serrated Bone Spike makes up a very, very large amount of damage just from its dot alone, making me skeptical of its current damage output staying this way in the future of beta iterations or once things go live. This, of course, would imply going Necrolord for your Covenant, which may or may not be the ideal choice once things get balanced or if things are changed about any of the Covenants. Regardless, what this all equals is a very large amount of your overall damage when you're not actually on the target, meaning movement mechanics are a lot less punishing for Assassination. Which, again, Castle Nathria has plenty of. In regards to mobility, Assassination sits pretty much in the middle of the pack between the three specs in my opinion. While Outlaw has access to Sprint and the potentially potent Grappling Hook ability, as well as cooldown reduction benefits for both of these moves, Assassination instead has one charge of Shadow Step and Sprint. Unfortunately, there is no cooldown reduction involved for either of these moves. And then there's Subtlety, which wins pretty big here with 2 charges of Shadow Step and Sprint. You also don't need to waste a charge of Shadow Step as Subtlety, since you can Shadow Strike on the pull, which has a nice blink effect when used from stealth and does extra damage. On top of that, it also saves you a charge of Shadow Step, so that's pretty nice. Rotation-wise, Assassination plays virtually the same as we've seen in the past. Vendetta and Vanish windows, Garrote and Rupture upkeep, with honestly only a couple new additions. Shiv has returned as a baseline ability and works as a mini Toxic Blade, though unfortunately that means that the Toxic Blade talent has been removed. It's still functionally the same, though slightly less damage and has less % bonus to your poisons. Slice and Dice is probably the biggest and most noticeable change to the rotation, which is honestly relatively negligible in single target and 2 target fights, though it does mean a bit more maintenance moves to cast throughout the fight. This move becomes a bit more tiresome to deal with in multi-target scenarios, but for raiding this is generally a non-issue, though I really wish they had come up with some sort of a passive to make it benefit our energy regeneration and to help it combat the slower playstyle of Assassination. In terms of Legendaries and Conduits and their current state, Assassination is not exactly looking the healthiest of the bunch, unfortunately. The Conduits do have a ranking system attached to them, which if Blizzard plans to keep this system in place, as we haven't seen it yet, it means that conduits like Maim Mangle and Lethal Poisons will have a overtime benefit to the progression of Assassination in terms of raids. But as far as for Castle Nathria, both of these are at a pretty low percentage and aren't exactly that strong, it seems. Again, there is still no tuning done yet, so that could literally change overnight, so we'll have to see. As far as legendaries go, that's a little bit of a different story. Currently, of the 4 Assassination-specific legendaries, the only one that is working entirely correctly of them is Dustwalker's patch. They changed the name to Dustwalker. I don't get it. It was Dustwalker in Legion. Why is it Dustwalker now? I don't know. Anyways. Due to this, it's hard to get a real feeling for how well it is tuned in comparison to both Outlaw and Subtlety. Blizzard honestly usually leaves Assassination pretty much alone in terms of balancing. However, from how the other specs feel and are performing, I feel it might be a little bit behind in terms of throughput at the moment. Again, this is possibly just due to the legendaries being bugged in various ways. But this is something we'll really want to keep an eye on, because having good uptime and dots is all well and good, but without the damage numbers to keep up with other rogue specs or just other melee classes in general, it will be less likely to be brought outside of groups just wanting to progress with the classes and specs they enjoy playing on. However, I have a pretty good feeling Assassination will still be a strong contender in rating, as long as there is some form of balancing to it and between the other classes, and if they can get these legendaries fixed soon enough that we can test them accordingly, as it's really hard to get an exact feel for how much they'll improve our damage without them working entirely correctly, Blizzard. I ended up just using Master Assassin in Raid, which probably wasn't as ideal as I was hoping for it to be, as I was still running the Necrolord Covenant instead of Sepsis. But at least I know that it's a working legendary, so that will directly affect the potential damage of the spec as well. It's still very much up in the air if the extra vanishes from Sepsis will work out to more damage than Bone Spike, or if Bone Spike is just so strong and generates so many combo points for so cheap that it's just invariably going to be a stronger option, so we'll have to wait and see how that works out. Anyways, I hope you folks enjoyed this little talk about how I feel Assassination is turning out in Castle Nathria so far. I try my best to keep these as unbiased as possible while still explaining what I thought the spec felt like. Oh, and if you're new around to my little corner of the YouTube algorithm, I'd like to welcome you to check out the rest of the channel. I do new uploads every weekday about a variety of WoW-oriented things, with a pretty healthy amount of rogue-specific stuff. If you knew all that, you're probably one of my charming regular viewers, a subscriber, or even a patron of mine. If so, I just wanted to let you all know that I genuinely appreciate you taking some time out of your day to check out the channel and the videos that I put up. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.